I have to go to do my best and worry about my stuff so that I can, represent Canada in a really good way. And as team manager, it's a whole different ball game. Like, I need to know so much more of what's going on.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of Off the Mat. My name is Josh Dumoulin, and this is
Nicole Stratichuk.
Do you remember when we went to Budapest?
Yes.
In 2016?
Yes, I do.
All right, one of the things that really stands out, well, okay, there's a lot of things, of course, but one of the funniest things that really happened, jeez, oh my God, I think we could have an entire episode on the funny things that happened just at that event.
Yes.
But one thing that was really funny is when we were traveling with a very good friend of ours, Chris Fish. And we were traveling along, and I can't remember where exactly we met. I think we ended up meeting in Toronto.
Probably.
And we had to fly from Toronto to England. We landed in London, and we were supposed to get our bags.
Yes.
Bring them on to the connection flight, and then they would meet us in Budapest. Well, he just assumed, he hardly flies. Well, one, he made his he made his flight ticket the wrong name. He booked it as Chris Fish instead of Christopher, which is on his passport. And so he already had a bunch of border trouble. And we almost didn't. He had to go to this tiny little jail.
I remember.
While we were all waiting, he had to wait in this tiny little jail cell.
Not an actual jail cell, but yeah, it was
it was caged off. It was funny enough.
It was like its own little, you're not right, so you're going to go into this little holding spot right here.
And they almost didn't let him leave. I don't know how he made it from his original flight to Toronto, then Toronto to London, but it was finally in London where they were like,
these things, your documents don't match.
Don't match. We're not going to let you leave.
Yeah.
He managed to somehow talk his way out of it, and he made it through. So he finally got out of jail, and then we were already behind, and we said, we have to go get our bags. He goes, nope, mine are going to be in, they're meeting us in Budapest. And we were like, dude, we got to get our bags. And he goes, nope, mine are going to be there. So we grabbed our bags, and he was convinced. Sure enough, we get all the way to Budapest. We land, we get to the carousel, we get our bags, and we're standing there waiting
for
Chris for his bag. And it still makes me laugh just thinking of just like all of the adventures you have when you go to a tournament, when you go to, especially these big ones, when you're traveling overseas to new countries. It is so much different than just going to, across Canada or to the U.S. Even little rules about your passport needing to be, updated a certain amount of time before the expiry.
That's right.
Like, because we witnessed somebody in England get taken off because their passport to go through England, it had to be updated within 6 months of expiry. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they were sent right back to the US. Anyway, those are just all the funny things. And it does get confusing when you are going to different countries. It is so different. You just travel to the US, usually your luggage just meets you there. Right. 9 times out of 10. I think rare cases, it'll be like connections, you get mixed up and they have to do it. But when you're traveling around, a lot of times you do have to pick it up and you have to take it around and check it into the new.
Yeah, it really all just depends on your flight path and all of that stuff. Like whether you have to grab your bags or not grab your bags, you just really have to pay attention to the airline is telling you when you check in and things like that. So
and it's just it was a whole funny thing. And then sure enough, it took them. I think the airline was really good. I think they had within 24 hours.
Or just like a day and a half. Yeah. And at that tournament, when we went to Budapest, because it was a World Cup, not World Championships, we stayed at a Airbnb
Right.
type thing. We rented this little apartment, and yeah, we stayed there. So even finding that place was an adventure, and then to get his bag delivered to that place was an adventure. Yeah, that was a cool little place that we got to stay in. At World Championships, you stay at like the hotel that Team Canada books for you, right? So when it's a World Cup, you kind of have a little bit more freedom to stay where you want or find somewhere. And that was the first time that we had done like an Airbnb kind of that far away, or maybe even at all.
I think for us, that might have been our first time doing an Airbnb
our
type
first
thing.
experience, and talking with whoever owned that unit and stuff was an adventure in itself. Like, yeah, it was a very adventurous stay trip. That one.
It was a blast. And then, like I said, there was all the stuff that we did afterwards during the event. It was a really, really fun trip. So we didn't get a lot of touring around, but I'd love to go back there. It was lots of fun. Just all the stuff that we did get to do, and a lot of the memories that we do have from that particular trip. And that might have been the first time we really were gone for like that extended time together anyway, from like our school, Ryder, all of it. Like Ryder didn't come at that time. He was really, really young. We were both competing and stuff like that. So it was a little bit tougher to do.
That's right.
And it just, as we were thinking about today's episode, it just got me thinking about what you're going to be doing come tomorrow. You're leaving for Finland for the 2023 World Championships. And yeah, it's exciting, but a little bit different. You're not going as a competitor.
Yeah, it's way different. Yeah.
That's right. You're going as team manager. So I thought it would be kind of interesting to talk a little bit about maybe what you've been doing to process, what you've been doing to prepare as a team manager versus what you used to do as a competitor, because they're two very, very different hats. And you've had to do a lot of preparing, mental preparation, planning, all of that stuff, versus when you were an athlete going to compete at a tournament, it was pretty much just get your body sharp, get your mind and your cardio and all of these things prepared to compete. A lot of the planning got taken care of. You might have had to decide, do I want a single room? Do I want a double room? Do I want to eat here? Do I want to eat, like, what do you need to do for planning? But it was even then very basic in what you had to prepare in that sense. You got to really just think, how many days am I going to be at the gym? How many days am I going to do patterns? How many days am I going to do this, right? So very different versus right now. What are some stuff that you've, like, really, okay, when did you get team manager position? Was it 8 months ago, 6 months ago?
Yeah, I was appointed at the beginning of March. I finally got the official notice that I was Team Canada manager. So March, April, May, June, July, August, 6 months ago. And it's been an intense 6 months of preparation. And I think back, if I was a competitor, like, it would have been an intense 6 months of competitor preparation as well. It's just very different, obviously. I'm not competing, so I'm really not focused on my own martial arts training, like, for that elite level. But it's been a very eye-opening experience, and I feel like this time going to the World Championships, I'm way more aware of the World Championships. As an athlete, I wouldn't like consume myself with too much of what was happening, like, or what the planning was, or what the venue was going to look like. I didn't worry about those details because it didn't matter to me, right? As a competitor, all I thought about was like, wow, I'm going to step onto this ring. That's all I need to know. Right. Like, I didn't need to bother myself with, like, what was happening this night, or when this was happening, or, what this and that and the other thing was. I just didn't think about all of that stuff because that wasn't my job. That wasn't my purpose when I was going as a competitor. Now, as the team manager, I feel like I know everything that's going on in Finland right now, and I know what is happening every day. I'm very more aware of, like, who's competing when, like, whereas an athlete, I was really just focused on myself. And not like I didn't care about Team Canada. It was just like, I have to go to do my best and worry about my stuff so that I can, represent Canada in a really good way. And as team manager, it's a whole different ball game. Like, I need to know so much more of what's going on. So I feel like that's been a huge difference.
Have the actual draws come out yet?
Yes, they were released last Thursday. So like 5 days ago.
At this point here now, athletes, they've gotten to see what day they're going to compete in which division, approximately time, all of it. Who even your first competitor is going to be, right?
Yes.
So like now all athletes have been, now it's a different game, right? So like I just remember for myself, and I don't know how you felt, but when those finally got out, that for me was like okay, like the World Championships started almost then for me, because you now knew, if the competition started on Monday, okay, Tuesday I'm doing sparring at this time and my first color of gear is red, and I'm going to be competing against Russia, I'm going to be competing against Poland or whoever it was, right? So you at this point now were like, okay, like it started.
Yeah, and then this time around, like, I know as an athlete, I would see those draws come out and you find who your first, match is and know what color you're fighting in and all of that stuff. So that just helped you kind of even take your mental preparation even a step farther, right? Because now I can, I know I'm going to wear red and I know I'm going to start on this side of the mat and that sort of stuff. So that helped me. But again, like when I would look at those draw sheets, I looked at mine.
Right.
I didn't look at anybody else's.
That's right.
Just because I couldn't take that mental space and look at everybody else's.
Whereas what about right now? So now being in this position, in this role, and seeing all of those things up, I know that's probably not a big chunk of your role, but have you gone through and been like, oh, I'm curious to see who this
So Miss Merritt, of course, is Team Canada head coach. So she has, since the draws come out, she has been very, very busy planning and organizing all of the team of coaches, right? And so she's been really dive deep into that stuff. And so she is way on top of that more than I am. I have, now that she's prepared her sheets that us as Team Canada will use, now I've looked at those, and I look at it just through different eyes, right? Because now I'm thinking, okay, we have to support all of these athletes, and how are we going to do that? So as we travel to Finland, me and Miss Merritt will be meeting lots about, and daily, probably multiple times a day as the tournament gets closer, and as the tournament begins, we'll be looking at those and making sure that we have our plan in place so that all of those athletes are supported, because they all need a coach, right? It's different from World Championships to, like, let's say a smaller tournament, right? Like sometimes you get a coach, sometimes you don't. At World Championships, you have to have a coach, right? So that's our job as Team Canada manager, as head coach, as Team Canada coaches, that we make sure every single athlete has a coach present at the ring when they go in. So it is a big job. And so I'm just looking at those draws a totally different way.
Well, and there's also like a big difference too when you're competing, like the at a local event, you're pretty much ringside, right? At a national event, you're ringside, you're waiting for your name to get called up. But because it's so big, I don't know how many competitors are at this one. Do you know?
Close to 2,000.
Right.
From 55 countries or so.
Right. So 2,000 competitors, let's just say. Even if there's 20 rings, like 2,000 competitors aren't allowed ringside.
Right.
Because it's chaos.
Yeah.
So you are off in another section, but it's up to you to make sure like, okay, I'm the 15th match. They're starting match number 1. Yeah. So then the coaches are really busy going, okay, approximately 2 twos, this much. They're doing their calculations and being like, okay, you're in about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, cool. and a half.
And yeah, so Miss Merritt has already gone through and like played that all out for us, and we've she's already got a plan of who's coaching who and in what ring and all of that stuff. And at World Championships is different, right? Like I think at this event there will be 9 rings. No. Yeah, 9 rings.
9 rings. Okay.
And yeah, so we get maps and stuff, and so we know where the coaches can be. We know where the head coach can go. We know where the team manager can go. And so, Miss Merritt and I are strategizing about how are we going to make sure that we get everybody covered. And, we have modes of communication with walkie-talkies and things like that, which also there's rules around that, right? So it's like, I really know the rules way different than I did as an athlete.
Yeah, you're really focused on like, did they, is the points the same? Is this the same as a kick? Like you're worried about those things.
And actually knowing the proper protocols and procedures in the ring. So that has been a lot of learning that I've done, because as an athlete, I didn't worry about that stuff so much, because I just know I got to go in, I got to get the most points, and that's all I worry about.
That's
right? I know the basics of the rules, but as for procedures and because if there is a mistake in procedures or protocols, then protests can happen and stuff, and that's the coach's job, right? So as part of the coaching team, I feel like that's been more of a focal point, is making sure that we are all on top of our game and we know all of those rules, like just way better than I did know as an athlete, which is, I think it's weird, but not, I don't think about it as weird. I feel like it seems weird that I wouldn't know the rules as an athlete.
Not necessarily. Yeah. Like there's just, there's a lot of like underlying things that like you said, like, okay, well, did I get the right dobok, the right uniform? Do I have the right belt? Is this?
Yeah.
So those things, but then it's like, well, what if the other person doesn't have it?
That's the thing. Like coaches are also watching the other competitor and the other coach and the umpires and stuff like that. So to make sure that everything is good. And I suspect 99% of the time it is going to be. But as the coach, you're just much more aware of all of those things. Right. As the athlete, I didn't even look at anybody else,
right?
Like, because it just didn't matter. Like I just had one goal, one purpose, was to go in and win. That was it. Like that's all I had to do. I didn't have to worry about all the other rules and stuff. So now going as Team Canada manager / coach, I am much more aware of all of these things and the event itself. So
for sure. And so you were saying earlier, like, you didn't concern yourself with the venue itself, the rings and all of those things. But would you say, like, have you checked out, hey, it's in this venue and the venue looks like this, and here's the map. You're like actually like taking a look at it a little bit more than you would as an athlete?
Yeah, just like all the little details of where the training, like where can we go to train, where's the warm-up, where is the venue in relation to where we're staying, and what's the transportation, all of that stuff. Like as an athlete, I didn't worry about any of that.
That's right.
Because I was like, well, when I know I'm going to go there, I'm going to have my hotel room, and I know that I just have to be where I need to be when they tell me that I need to be there, right? But on this side, I'm like part of that planning and trying to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row and making sure that things are ready to go. I just feel a different weight of responsibility when it comes to those logistic parts of the team.
Well, and especially for your part, because team manager, you're in charge of a lot of things that probably even another layer that the coaches don't even experience, other than like head coach, who's kind of like,
right.
But it's a lot of the other ones are probably, they don't even realize how many times you've probably talked to the hotel.
Yes.
They don't know how many times you've had to rearrange rooms to fit people, doing all of these things. Yes. Like that is a massive role.
It
as
is.
Team manager.
Yeah, it is. And then lots of my communication is done a lot with parents. I mean, with the adult competitors, the senior competitors, right? I'm directly talking with the athletes there for booking their accommodations and things like that. But with the juniors and the pre-juniors that are attending, lots of my communication is with the parents. And it's interesting too, because a lot of, pre-juniors, juniors, this is their first international event. And, some of them have been before, but a lot of them, this is their first one, right? After having such a long break from World Championships with pandemic and stuff kind of interrupting that schedule, it is a lot of new people this year. And so that's been interesting to like almost look at it from a beginner eyes, right? Because I've been so used to going to competitions like this, and I know all kind of like what happens. I have a good idea of what goes on, and that stress has not been a part of my planning or whatever, because I just know it, how things go. But working with parents that have never done this before, right? Like it's fun taking a step back and trying to think about what questions they have or what information do they need. And I really just try and, make sure that I'm giving them as much information as I can so that, they feel prepared and calm, at least about the stuff that I have control over anyway. Right. So,
and you're a competitor yourself. So like for you, like I know you're not going there as a competitor, but there's a certain standard and expectation you expect of yourself as an athlete. Mm-hmm. So you're coming at this with quite a unique take on it too, because you're also going in with that expectation and standard you have for yourself that you want to make sure that you deliver for everybody else.
That's right. So, and I really see myself as like, I'm not a competitor, but I am part of Team Canada in the way that like the stuff that I have control over, I want to make that as stress-free for the athletes as possible, because I know what they're going through as athletes. Yeah. And the last thing that they need is something to go wrong on my end, like something that I had control over for them. Like I just don't want that for the athletes, right? Because it's just another layer of stress to an already very stressful, nervous-ridden kind of event, right? So I have approached this manager position with, those high standards, because I just can't take it lightly. I just, I feel for the athletes. I know what they're going through. I've been there. I've done it. I love it. But at the same time, like as the manager, if I can make the accommodation, the team manager stuff of it as stress-free as possible, that's my biggest support to the athletes. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. And that's the role that you get to play, right? And it's quite the unique one, because like I've been watching you do what you do. Like I couldn't do it. Like, and I don't mean that in the way like I am not. You are planned. Now I have a standard and expectation I would have, and I'd hold myself to it. But you are organized. And it takes a really special person to be able to do that. Like all of the planning, the executing, the organization of it all. On top of that, still
here, running the business. And
still teaching classes.
Yeah.
Still being a mom.
And it's funny, like, our last World Championships was 2017. And then we had Rocky, and you took off to 2019 World Championships. And then, we were kind of in this limbo area of like, we knew Finland was coming up, and we are like, okay, are we going to do that competition? Like, are we going to be competitive? Like, and I had a lot of things going on because, in 2019, Rocky was just a baby. So I had lots of things to think
3
about.
months old.
Yeah. Lots of things to think about, like my competitive career going forward. And, and then of course, March 2020 hit, and that put a lot of things at ease that way. Like there was no decisions to make to go to World Championships, or are we going to try and compete again, and all of that stuff, or for me anyway. So that kind of took that stress off, and then took that stress off of deciding like, do I do this again? Because I love competition. I love competing. So it made that answer very clear for me that I wasn't going to compete.
Right.
And so then as Finland got announced and there was an opening for Team Canada manager, I thought, wow, I am not, and our life has changed over the last few years of just, our business, our kids, our family, So when this was all announced, I was like, hey, I think this is a good way that I can be involved and provide really good service to Team Canada in a totally different way, but taking that competitive stress off.
That's right.
So then I took it. But we've talked about this, what I've come to realize is like, this stress is still there, is just very different, right? Because even though I'm not competing and I'm not stepping into the ring myself, I still feel very committed and very just obligated to make sure I do the very best that I can, because I do not want to let any of the athletes down or the head coach down or anything, right? So what I thought would maybe be a less stressful thing didn't actually turn out to be that way. It is stressful. It's still the same amount of stress, I would say, just in a completely different way. And now I find that like can be a very empathetic type person. And so I feel like even though I'm not the athlete, I feel like I take on a lot of, like, I know what the athletes are going through right now. And so I feel nervous almost for them. I feel nervous that I'm going to let them down some way, but I don't think I am. I hopefully have all my bases covered. I have tried my 110% best to make sure that I've covered everything. Yeah, I feel for them and I know what they're going through. And yeah, anyway.
So have you done anything to, like, obviously, like, there's the planning, but is there anything you've been doing to prepare mentally, physically? Like, one thing, you still go to the gym, you're still training, you're still doing all of that stuff, so you're still keeping your body sharp, right? Like, I mean, that's just, I think, a lifestyle, though. That's less of like a, you need to do this for any competition. That's just the lifestyle, which probably helps you a lot when it comes to handling this stress, because you're constantly physically doing something difficult and challenging and everything. But is there anything unique maybe that you've been doing to prepare?
I don't think anything really unique, but yeah, over the summer, I mean, summer is busy, right? Kids are out of school and we're having lots of fun and doing this and that, but still really staying focused on everything that we're doing. And but with working out and stuff like that, to me, when I am physically taking care of my body, and there were times this summer where I didn't get to the gym because I was up all night working on Team Canada stuff, and so I wouldn't get up in the morning to go to the gym. That's when I felt the most stress, right? And so
Isn't that interesting?
Yes,
how that works?
Yeah. So over the summer, it was a lot of, I had to stay up and get some of these things done because there was deadlines to meet and I just had to do it, right? So then I would miss the workout and then it would make me more stressed. And so over the last couple weeks, I've been really diligent about making sure I get back to the gym, making sure that I am staying sharp that way, because just being physically active and making sure, like, and we're always physically active, but that gym time to me is really, really important. It's just a good mental thing for me. And I always, when I go to the gym, yes, I do my weights and I do cardio, and I always finish with a yoga practice. And that piece is like my mental, like very focused mental preparation, right? Just getting my mind right, getting, even me not being an athlete, I'm still visualizing being at the venue now in a very different way, visualizing at being at the hotel and things like that, so that I can just best serve Team Canada. So, yeah.
Isn't that funny how that works? Hey, like, just keeping yourself physically active to be able to handle that stress mentally.
Yes.
Oh, funny, hey? Yeah. Funny how that works. Amazing how people just, that's not the answer that people want to hear.
Yeah.
Certainly, sure as hell is.
Yeah, there's just certain things that no matter what, you have to make the time for, right? And taking care of our physical body and our mind is so, so important because it helps keep us sane, I feel like, and helps keep me level. And yeah, so when those things start to go, you saw over the summer, like when I couldn't get to the gym, when I was staying up late working on stuff, like those were the times where I was the most a mess. And now over the last couple weeks, been really diligent about making sure I stay on track at the gym. And yeah, I feel actually like really good today.
That's good.
Yeah.
So
heading out tomorrow. So
yeah, that's awesome. And that's just it. That's what matters. Is you're in that like a good mental state with it. Like you're prepared. So preparing for this one, of course, different than as an athlete. Is there anything that you did? Of course, this is going back a little while ago. It's been a little bit, but was there anything that you used to do to prepare yourself for, aside from the obvious stuff like training, but like as a competitor? Is there things that maybe if you're a competitor who's listening, going, hey, I want to attend a world championships one day and nationals or whatever it is, high level in maybe even a different activity that you might do. Is there anything that you used to do in particular to prepare yourself for a big event that you were on your way to?
Like as an athlete?
As an athlete, not as Team Canada coach. And manager and stuff like that.
Yeah. So the physical preparation, completely two different stories, I feel like. So the physical preparation is absolutely committing 110% to that, because if my body wasn't 110% ready to go, then I wasn't going to serve Team Canada justice, right? Like I had to make sure that my body was prepped, but I also had to make sure my mind was prepped. So a lot of visualization is what helps me and what I would do as an athlete. And I did mention like I am doing that as Team Canada manager, but it's completely different. And like the preparation that went into that as an athlete with visualization was way more than what I do now. Whereas right now, a lot of, like as the Team Canada manager, is a lot of, checking spreadsheets and checking this and checking these arrangements and checking those arrangements and making sure that I've got a good handle on all of it. Just different. But definitely not taking your physical preparation lightly. Like get in with good trainers or good coaches and get your body prepped, but also spend a lot of time with your mind getting it prepped for such a big competition.
So is there any sort of breathing, visualization, what were some like of these techniques that you did? Like in terms of like a visualization.
Yeah, so visualization, I talk about this a lot. So when I visualize, especially as an athlete, I visualize in third person. And I've kind of done some like reading on this, like, because I don't know, when I first started visualizing, I didn't know how to do it. I just kind of crafted my own way of doing it. So when I visualize, I actually visualize myself in third person. And so I think about myself as Nicole. And I don't think about myself as I or me. I think about, wow, Nicole is in the ring. And so usually I start from the podium on the gold medal. So I start at the podium and I work backwards to wherever I am. And yeah, so that's how I started my vision.
Think with the end in mind.
Yes. So, and it's funny because I did those things as a teenager. Like I didn't have the knowledge and the practice that I have now. I started doing it because it felt good for my mind to get right that way. And so right from like 13 years old, because I attended my first world championships as 15. So right around 13 and 14, as I was like getting into those competitions like nationals and stuff, like that's what I did. I visualized myself first with the gold medal and the Canada flag around my back being on the podium. That's what I did. And then I worked backwards through, like, you just play out this script, and it would be different maybe every time, but there were a lot of similar things when I would visualize that. And I almost, if you think about, like, I was a bird in the room or like a fly on the wall, that's how I visualized, was from that perspective. And so it's kind of, it's weird to explain it, but like I'd be high up as like someone else, or like as a fly on the wall, and I would see Nicole down on the podium and see them raising the flag and see them putting the gold medal around her neck. And that's how I did it. And so I know lots of people, they might visualize in like more of a first person. So they might, it's weird. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but that's how I did it. And then I would see myself in the gold medal match, and I would see myself win that match. And then I would see myself in the previous match, and I would work through that in different scenarios and things like that.
And it's worth saying too, because if you're listening or watching, you actually won world championships too. So it's not like this is just something that like, oh, I've thought about it, and like, oh, I've never gone anywhere. You've accomplished, you've won a world championship title.
Yes.
At how old again? You were in juniors.
Well, 15 was when I went to the first one. 17 is when I won at the juniors. Yeah.
So why in particular though? Was there any reason why you would not think of like, I'm up there? You would think of yourself like, Nicole is going to go up on that gold medal podium. Was there any particular reason why you thought third person and used your name, not me, I, this?
Yeah.
Like, what?
And back then, no, there was no reason why I did it. It was just, that's how I started doing it, and that's how I did it. And now later, actually just like in the last like few years, I've kind of been reading more books about it and like kind of understanding like why. And it's interesting because all of a sudden I'll read something and I'm like, hey, that's what I did, but I didn't know back then that's what I was doing. Right? So it's kind of been interesting. Like, I read this book I think it's called Mindset. Anyway, there's a section in that book about visualization, or not visualization, but more how you self-talk, I think. Anyway, but they talked about how if you refer to yourself in third person, it can be more effective because you place more accountability or something like that. I'd actually have to I wasn't prepared for this question, but yeah, it was interesting to read that because that's what I was doing in my visualization. Is I wasn't I or me. I was actually visualizing, like, having this out of body experience and visualizing Nicole on the podium as opposed to me on the podium, which is the same thing but different. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, no,
I hope you're understanding what I'm trying to say.
I get it.
Yeah.
I find it interesting. That's why I wanted to ask you why in particular did that work for you?
I don't know why it worked, and I don't know why I did it that way.
Right.
It was just what I did, and it helped, and so I continued that practice. And so anytime I was getting ready for competition, even later years or in the last 10 years, right, when we've gone to Budapest and Ireland and Vancouver, like all the places, right?
That's right.
That is just how I did it. And I had really no rhyme or reason or formal training or, any formal sports psychologist to tell me that was the thing to do. That's just what I did, and it worked for me, so I kept doing it.
Interesting. Yeah. And I like that you do this, and we talk often about, the end in mind, right? So thinking about yourself on the podium first, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, a year ago, and then being like, okay, well, what does that person who got onto the podium do?
Yes.
And we often see this mistake being made with athletes is, well, they just go to the gym with no rhyme or reason. There's no why. They almost can't, I want to get on the podium, but they got to think there first, like they're there.
And so, actually now, having read more about this and understanding it a little bit better, but one element of starting with you yourself on the podium, it allows your mind to accept that. So if you don't do that, it seems like so foreign for you to be on the podium. Right? But when you visualize that, your brain doesn't know the difference between visualization and actual happening. So what you're doing there is just kind of closing the uncertainty for your brain. So even though you haven't actually stood on the podium, if you're visualizing you standing on the podium, your brain is accepting that. And so if you're not doing that, your brain doesn't know. It's something different. It's something untouchable unless you're actually visualizing yourself on the podium. I hope I'm saying it the right way or making it clear. But yeah, just visualizing yourself in that at that point, it makes it real in your brain. Your brain doesn't know the difference between your visualization and like actual happening. So it makes it okay in your brain that you're going to get the gold medal. I think.
No, that is really cool because like often like we're it's a weird concept, but like I've often found myself afraid of like succeeding.
Yes.
And I can probably go back to those times when that was probably what it was. Like the idea of winning was so like, oh no, I can't do that. Or
so your brain and your body. So our brain is so interesting. And like, I am not an expert at all, but I just find it very interesting how your brain can tell you like, no, you can't do that. Right. So like if you say, I want to win gold medal at world championships, your brain is like, whoa. Like that's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of pain. It's going to take a lot of suffering. And our brain is like, well, no, I need to protect this body. And so sometimes your brain will say like, no, we can't do that. That's not okay.
Experiences tell us this,
right?
Put these things in our head too, because well, you've been hurt before, you've lost before. You don't want to go through that again, do you?
Yeah, so your brain is like trying to protect you a little bit. The funny thing is though that you can train your brain to be okay with that and to understand that that is achievable and that is, something within your grasp if you can just visualize yourself being there. So it like helps with some of that thought, those limiting beliefs and stuff, because you're telling your brain that it's okay that you're there, right? Like it makes it okay. You belong there. Yeah, you do definitely belong up there. And so it just tricks your brain a little bit into being like, yeah, okay, we can do that. No problem. But yeah, that's been my experience with visualization. But yeah.
That's really interesting. I like that.
It's just been interesting. Like I did those things not knowing any of it.
Right.
Like I didn't know anything about it. But then in the last several years, like reading more about it and understanding a little bit more about it, it was like,
you saw similarities.
Oh yeah. I just saw the connections of like what I was doing back then and now understanding why some of that really, really helped me back then. You had asked just other techniques and stuff. So visualization is like huge, right? And when it comes to feeling nerves and anxiety and stuff, I mean, I experienced all of it and always deal with anxiety. Like that's just part of life for me. And so, yeah, with Team Canada even, we had a training here one weekend and I went through like my performance anxiety seminar that I've delivered in the past. And so we talk about different breathing techniques or different movement or different routines or just different strategies to dealing with anxiety that show up at different times in different ways. So yeah, but it's really about practicing those things. And the only way that you can practice those things is to put yourself in some stressful situations so that you can put these strategies to the test, right? So when we talk about doing hard things, this is why you do the hard things, is because if you want to be a world champion, it is going to take a lot of pain and a lot of suffering and a lot of hard work. And if you don't ever put yourself in there, you don't have the practice, right? And so if you're someone like me that experienced a lot of nerves and anxiety, you need the opportunity to actually practice those strategies. So you have to deliberately put yourself in other stressful situations so that you can practice those strategies and make sure you figure out what works for you. And what works for me might not work for everybody, but like I'll share with you all the stuff that I do that has worked for me, but you need to put yourself in a stressful situation so that you can actually practice that and be ready for World Championships.
That I'm smiling about that and kind of like, because it's funny, no matter how many times I feel like we deliver that message,
yes,
there is still just this blank stare on a lot of people. There is this over the head, in one ear, out the other. They do not want to accept that is the answer to it. Like,
right. And we look at what you and I do, like we always find different things to do, different challenges to take, but that is, for me, is always just refining my personal practices and that muscle of being able to deal with something hard. Because the thing is, you are going to experience hard things whether you like it or not. So if you are better prepared, you're going to handle those hard things way better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and me having gone to, World Championships as a teenager and stuff, like there's some of those things that I got to experience early in life, and even just life itself, like my life experiences. I've got to experience some hard things, and it just prepared me for life. And so if you just find the hard things to do. I guess that's exactly what we're trying to say, is just find the hard things to do, because you're going to experience something hard at some point. And if you're better equipped to deal with something hard, you're going to be farther on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of crumbling or not being able to.
And maybe, just maybe, realize that the people in your life who are pushing you and challenging you are doing it for a reason. And stop being so whiny and complaining about it. Like, actually understand where they're coming from, because a lot of times we, or coaches and everything, kind of know what we're doing a little bit, and we're helping you prepare for it. And if this is the biggest obstacle, is somebody kind of maybe saying, like, giving you the straight answer, or maybe pushing you a little bit outside your comfort zone a little bit, if that's the biggest obstacle and that's making you whine and cry and crumble,
imagine
you're done. You're done.
Well, imagine what's going to happen in, other life experiences.
Absolutely.
In...
You won't last. You won't make it.
Yeah. Anyway.
So... I really
kind of went on a tangent there, but it was a good tangent.
Yeah, absolutely. I like hearing both perspectives of how you prepared, both for an athletic competition and as a team.
I find them both very stressful, just in different ways, and I don't feel like either job was easier or harder than the other. They're just different, and I feel just as committed as team manager as I was as an athlete. So hopefully I did a good job.
Is there a event that you are there, as far as you having to go and compete, you don't have to worry about that part, but is there an event, because now that you're going, you're just going to be able to but you're going to be able to watch and observe and really be maybe a little bit more present into the whole thing. Is there an event in particular that you are looking forward to? Like, what is the one thing you cannot wait to watch?
Oh, I can't say that there's any one single event. I am honestly just really excited to see the whole competition, right?
One event.
I don't know if I have one that's like I'm more excited to see. I think sparring, of course, I am like super pumped to watch the men's and women's sparring. Sparring and team sparring. I'll narrow it to two.
Those two, sparring and team sparring.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch those two events. Of course, I love patterns too. And we have a Team Canada women's team performing patterns. So I'm very excited to see them too. And yeah, I'm excited for all of it. The specialty and power is totally not in my wheelhouse as an athlete, but I'm excited to watch that as well. It's even when we went as athletes to those competitions, like specialty and power is really exciting to watch.
Well, all of it is, I know what you're saying. It's hard to narrow it down. All of it is exciting because, especially if you're an athlete, you can appreciate what each discipline has to go through. Like, you might not have done the same stuff to prepare for sparring that a breaker does, or a breaker has to do for patterns and all across, but there's something shared because you do push yourselves and your body in different ways for different kinds of events. So as an athlete, you can appreciate all of them.
And as you know, going in this role, I am excited just to experience the whole event, because I feel like I'm not going there just for patterns or just for sparring, right? As an athlete, that's what I went there for, and that was my sole focus, and I didn't care about anything else. This time around, I am there for the entire team, and we have a team of 38 athletes, and so we are in a lot of the divisions, and I am excited to just soak that all in. One thing that I am excited for is opening ceremonies is always really exciting. It's kind of, but also as an athlete, I found it very nerve-wracking because it was like, okay, here's the opening ceremonies, and now we're getting to it after that. I'm excited to watch opening ceremonies without without the pressure of like, oh my gosh, it's starting now. Right? Whereas I am excited for opening ceremonies just to watch and soak that all in and just feel the excitement from Team Canada and the world. And yeah, that piece I am very excited for, more so as Team Canada manager rather than an athlete. So because I feel like I will just appreciate that piece of it way more this time around.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're all excited for you guys. We can't wait to see how Canada does. We can't wait to see how you guys do. We can't wait to hear all about it. I'm sure we'll probably talk all about it when you get back on an episode here as well. The experiences and the challenges and all of the stuff in between, all of the funny stories, lost luggage. Hopefully
no lost luggage.
If you took anything away from this, check your stays, where you're supposed to do. Are you supposed to pick up luggage? Check all of those things when you travel, okay? Yeah, the last thing you want to worry about is lost luggage right before you're about to compete. So check those things.
Yeah, just add, like, as an athlete going to a world championship, like, it's just one added stress that you don't need. So just take care of that all before you leave.
Check it all out. Make sure you're ready. Make sure you're prepared. Know the plan. Know the schedule. If any of those things, because there was a lot of stuff that was definitely really, really helpful in this episode here that you dropped here. So if there's anything in these episodes here, or in this, especially this particular one here, that can help a competitor, share it with them, because there was a ton of stuff dropped here that you were able to really, I think, give to somebody preparing for a competition. I think there's even stuff in here as a parent. If you're not a competitor, there's stuff that you can pull and extract from and go, okay, I kind of understand a little bit about what is going on in my child's like process here. And hopefully I can maybe take some of those things and teach them and help them become that champion. Well, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate this. Hey, if you guys enjoyed this episode, again, share it with anybody else you know, and please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, or just leaving us a review on any of the audio platforms that you do listen to us. We'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode. My name is Josh Dumlin, and this is
Nicole Stratachuk.
And you've been listening to Off the Mat.